My name is Izzy. I'm a sophomore, biological sciences and health professions major with a sociology minor. I'll say Mexican heritage. And then I was adopted by white people.
No, hang on. By your parents, who happen to be white.
Yes, my parents who happen to be white.
Hi, I'm Karina. My major, I'm a communications major. I'm a second year, and I was adopted from Guatemala by someone from an Irish heritage and a Ruthenian heritage.
Because I was raised in a primarily white community, I've felt a bit disconnected from it. But then we would go to Mexico, and I also kind of felt like I didn't fit in there. You kind of resonate with both sides, but you really don't belong anywhere, kind of.
I celebrate a lot more like Ruthenian culture with like Christmas, and like we're Byzantine Catholic, so we mainly eat like pierogies and babaiki, and yeah, we never really celebrate Guatemalan.
You ever make tamales? Has there been periods in your life where you wanted to take more of that and you've sort of elevated that and diminished your white side because you wanted to uplift your Mexican side?
It's kind of the opposite, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I think
about 2 million children in the U.S. are adopted, okay? And about a quarter are transracial adoptions, which is kind of, okay, that's a lot, right? That's a lot. So folks like you, like both of you. So the first thing is, for me as a sociologist, okay, I'm fascinated by adoption. And I'm fascinated by all the people in my life who have been adopted, who I know have been adopted, and the different kind of really cosmic sociological, very different, but just kinds of struggles that they have. And not everyone has struggles, okay, so that's also really important. And sometimes it changes over time. This organization here, I actually wrote this down because I thought it was good. You know, for them, a child is the sum total of their experiences, okay? Biological, physical, emotional, social, and cultural. It's the sum total of all those things, including biological, right? The genetic experiences, which is really fascinating. So anyway, when you hear that, a child is the sum total of all their experiences, does that resonate in any way for you when you think about who you are and in maybe different ways in which you might feel like different or the same with people around you or whatever?
I was adopted when I was like 5, so I was fairly young, but I think I got lucky in the way that my parents kind of tried to like connect me with my heritage. Like we went to Mexico a lot, and we just kind of helped out in like certain communities and stuff. And so I think having that opportunity helped me to connect with my culture, although because I've never met my biological parents, I've never been able to really connect with that biological side, I guess. So being able to experience what is my culture, but not my parents' culture, has given me kind of that like well-rounded experience, but I know that a lot of others don't get the same experience.
Okay, so you just said something really interesting. You said twice you referenced your culture, right? And so what is your culture?
My mom was full-blooded Mexican, and then I believe that my father was white. I've never done one of the ancestry tests or anything, so I just kind of go off of my mom's word, she actually knew my biological mother and was there when I was born. So I just kind of go off what she told me. But to me, that's my culture because I look like a Hispanic person, And I identify with that culture. Because I was raised in a primarily white community, I've felt a bit disconnected from it just because I don't look like them, I am like shaped differently than them, like you just know you don't necessarily belong there. But then we would go to Mexico and I also kind of felt like I didn't fit in there. And so it was kind of this weird like in between that you're kind of stuck in. So you kind of resonate with both sides, but you really don't belong anywhere kind of. And so I guess I just reference like the culture as in I felt very comfortable with other people of my same ethnicity, and I just really appreciate it in general.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I'm also very proud of my heritage, so.
Yeah, and you say heritage, so you're half Mexican,
Yes.
right? But yet it's really complex, right? Because your parents, you are also your adopted parents. That's also your culture.
I always had like a weird experience because I have my parents' last name, which is like German or something.
Yeah.
But the way that it's spelled and because of what I look like, everyone wants to say it like Hispanic. And so it's always been kind of weird. Like, no, it's just regular. It's Chives, but everyone says like Chavez or like some like spicy thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah. Hey, so Karina, how about you? When I want to go back to that very first question about that a child like you are a sum total of all your experiences. Yeah. How?
I agree with what she said about being a makeup of both my adoptive family and also the family that I was born from. I know what my mom looks like. I don't know what my dad looks like. But I look nothing like my mom from her photos. So I'm assuming that I look like my dad. But it is a bit of an identity crisis where I don't fit in with the people at school because I think there's one other like Latin American student.
Back in high school?
Back in high school, because I lived in a very predominantly white area. So most of my friends were white, so it would always be like, you know, oh, Karina is the brown girl of the friend group, or like they'd be like, oh, she's Mexican, I think, and I'm like Guatemalan, but okay.
Same thing, but Guatemalan. Yeah, and you really, like, when I look at you, you have indigenous features. Right?
Yeah, Mayan features.
Mayan.
I'm more
for sure.
Mayan Indian than I am Guatemalan, if that makes sense.
Like you see that, right? You can see it really clearly. It's so
Yep.
You have that awesome nose, man.
Thank you.
No, do you love your nose?
I do love my nose.
You should.
I love my lips the most.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
My favorite feature.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, I celebrate a lot more like Ruthenian culture with like Christmas and like we're Byzantine Catholic, so we mainly eat like pierogies and babaiki and all the good stuff. But,
all the good stuff.
Yeah, we never really celebrate Guatemalan.
You ever make tamales? Do you?
My mom makes tacos, and she makes some good guacamole, I won't lie.
All right.
But yeah.
But guacamole is not really Guatemalan.
No.
I want to go back to this idea of being different. And Izzy, you kind of touched it, like the being different. And both of you touched it. But what I was saying about struggles of being adopted, right? Do you have anything that you would add to that? Like it's a cosmic thing. It's not, do you have anything you would add to that? Like I'm not going to dig really deep into it because I'm not asking you to speak on behalf of yourselves, but I know you both must know a lot of people who are adopted because that's just the name. Because you're just going to be naturally drawn out. Is there anything you would say about that you could say at your young age?
For me, it's kind of just like little things. Like people would be like, "Oh, you have your mom's eyes," and I'm like, I don't though.
Yeah.
Or like just kind of, it's like little things people will say like that is the only time it really like comes up, I guess. And like most of the time, like if they say I'm like, oh, I'm adopted, and everyone goes, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, what do you,
You're sorry?
like, what do you mean? Like people think of it as like a very touchy subject, I guess.
Yeah.
But for me, I feel very lucky for like where I ended up and everything. And so like I've not necessarily had an issue, like no one's like, you're adopted, like you're weird. I've never had anything like that, which I'm sure people may have, and I'm very lucky for that. But yeah, like just stupid things.
Well, no, but the idea of saying I'm sorry, right? So one of the things very much in this class is to normalize lots of things and to help us to have those kinds of conversations. So like nobody in this class, when you meet someone who's adopted, you're never gonna tell them, hey, I'm sorry, right? Like, I'm sorry what, that I exist? If you think about that, you know.
They're like, oh, I'm sorry, like I brought it up.
Right,
But, like,
right.
at least with my friends, we kind of make it into like a joke. Because like it's normal, like it's a part of my life and who I am, but it's not like weird to talk about.
So when I look at you, I see, you know, like one of the things, I'm often talking about faces, right? Because because many years ago, I was working with one of my colleagues here at Penn State doing this biogeographical ancestry testing, and he got really into faces. And he taught me so much, and I really learned about to focus in on faces, like your nose, for example, right? Just immediately. And to me, these things are cool. Everything that we are, it's kind of what I said the other day, all our different features are awesome because it's the legacy of our genes that we're carrying with us in the world, you know? So like, how can it not be awesome? And then, you know, but too often we live in this world where we want to have a certain look. And so, you know, we look in a mirror and we pick out the flaws and like, how could there be a flaw? It's just who we are. So, but when I have a question for you. When I made the comment about her cool nose, I see in your face, yeah, you're mixed, right? And you don't have an indigenous nose, like your nose is coming from your white side. Are there parts of you, so being half white and half Mexican, and you're really talking about the pride of your Mexican heritage, has there been periods in your life where you wanted to take more of that and you've sort of elevated that and diminished your white side because you wanted to uplift your Mexican side?
It's kind of the opposite, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but I think a lot of women of color kind of go through this phase where they're like, I just want to be white just to fit in and be normal. Like, I dyed my hair blonde in like high school because I was like, I so badly wanted to be white for like a period of a couple years, just because, like, especially in high school, you're kind of getting bullied for like little things, like, oh, your arms are hairy, like, you're like curvier, like blah blah blah. And so I was like, please just like make me white. I want to be like these like blonde girls like with light skin, and just like, please. But I don't know if it's for any particular reason, but I've never wished that I looked more Hispanic because I just
But now you're saying I'm really proud of that side of me, right? So you're proud of the side, but you're saying, but I don't want to look more Hispanic, but I want to celebrate my Hispanic side.
Right. I think that's definitely like a American social, like, look this way. But like when I go to Mexico, it's completely different. Here, like, you can walk down the street, a guy won't even look at you. If I go to Mexico, they're like,
you get a lot of attention.
Mommy, come here. It's just completely different, like, standards. And so, like, there, obviously, I'm going to be so much more, like, confident and, like, proud of it. But here, it's like you're almost made to not want to look that way.
Yeah, that's cool. She said the thing about going through the period of wanting to be white, and you said, oh, yeah. Can you say something about that?
In first grade, I would say, I used to wear long sleeve shirts, even in like the springtime, I hated looking at my arms just for my skin color, because I would look around and everyone else is white, and I'm like, oh no, I look different.
Dude, do you know how many white women are in this classroom who would die to have your skin?
That's what my mom says all the time.
Oh
She's
my
like, Karina, I
God.
would die to have your skin.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but feeling like the odd one out, I would rather fit in than stand out, which
Yeah.
sounds horrible, but I would rather fly under the radar than to just be like, oh, like, she's different. It took a while because I felt bad if I were to tell them I feel out of place, like I don't feel like part of the family in a way. Because I have a little brother who is white. He and everyone would always say like, "Oh, is that your boyfriend? Like, is that your?" And I'm like, "No, that's my little brother." And they would always say, "No, it's not." And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And they'd be like, "You guys don't look the same." And I have to explain. But I would mention that to my parents and say like, I would always tell them like, "Oh, like I look more like my dad, like because he has dark hair."
Mm-hmm.
So I would always say like, "Oh, yeah, like he could definitely look like he's my like real dad," to avoid that embarrassment.
Just the embarrassment that you felt.
Yeah, that I felt. So I explained that to them, and they would say like, no, like no one else is thinking that. That's all in your head. No, you're so beautiful, Karina. No, like,
No,
you
it
should
doesn't.
feel like
Should
better
feel.
to talk about
Listen, man.
adoption.
It's just like me when I said to you, do you know how many white women are sitting in this class who would kill for your skin? That's in no way to say, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, because I'm old enough now, I've had these conversations enough to know that you're going to feel that way regardless. But I'm continually surprised that over the course of the past 30 years, as I've had conversations with people your age, that it just seems like it doesn't matter what parents do, like, or they can't get it right, or because there is no getting it right, because every parent connects with every child, and it's just really difficult, right? So the question I have for the two of you is like, if you look, you're speaking to everybody in here or anywhere who imagines that one day they're going to adopt a child of a different race and or ancestry, either from in the U.S. or outside the U.S., what would you tell them?
I would say, please understand the struggles that we go through, and understand our history as well. And also, please listen to us when we say that we feel out of place. We don't look for advice. We just look for you guys to listen and to like see us and kind of say like, I understand. Like, I understand.
Even if you don't understand.
Even if you don't understand, like we just need to know that you can see us and really understand our struggles.
See us as we see us, which is sometimes is white, right? Because I've met lots of people who sometimes they look in a mirror and they're like, no. I had this student who was adopted from Korea, and she said, no, for 10 years of my life, I looked in a mirror and I saw a white girl. And I'm like, whoa, what do you mean you saw a white girl? She's like, no, I saw a white girle. I'm like, but there's no, like with you, there's no way you saw a white girl. It's like, no, I saw a white girl. And so it'd be like, okay, all right, that's the complexity. That's the kind of stuff you mean?
Yeah.
Izzy, how about you? Like, what would you say to people that they really, especially future, the parents need to know, like a lesson that's really difficult to get?
You definitely need to, if you're adopting a child from a different ethnicity or even a different country altogether, definitely educate yourself on, prior to adopting the child, to everything you can, every single social, political, every single aspect of that country before doing that. Because as a parent, that's just your duty. If you're having a kid, you already know all that stuff. It's kind of your responsibility to put yourself at that same level of knowledge and give them that courtesy of understanding where they came from.
Right. So it's like their DNA. It's as though their DNA is a place, right? Like I'm looking at the two of you, and you are this collection of this genetic, this magic genetic collection of genes, right? And if I had a child, the magic collection of genes, it's almost like it's geographic, but yours is not that. You have a collection of genes that's like, yeah, you're in your white families, but there's also something coming somewhere else. You can't, what I heard you just say is, you cannot put enough value on how important that is to account for, even when it seems kind of absurd. But I would imagine that both of you went through a period where you still didn't want to hear it. Like you didn't want to hear about Guatemala, and you're like, so what do you say to you then? Go back in time. Like, what do you say? You're 9 years old, and you're like, why do you keep talking about Guatemala? And like, I'm American, or whatever it is. I don't know. In my long sleeves.
I kind of always felt a little bit like out of place. Like, because obviously it's very obvious that I don't look like my family. But I guess my parents I know that they gave me like this little necklace, and it was made by a Guatemalan woman. And my mom was like, this is part of your heritage, Karina. Like, your people made this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And like, she tried to get me into basket weaving classes to try to revive any culture that I lacked at 10 years old.
So it was just like, so there were things, so your parents were doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter, like for a 10-year-old, it's like you gotta massage that, you gotta really work
I was
it.
more like, Mom, can I play soccer? Can I take dance classes? And she's like, no, we're gonna teach you how to basket weave. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, which is cool though.
It is cool, yeah.
It is cool, basket weaving's cool. Guatemalan basket weaving's really cool. And it's hard. This is the hard thing. Hey, by the way, you made a face at one point when she said the basket weaving thing.
Well, it was more of the your people, because that's exactly what my mom says.
Your people?
Yeah, she said, oh, like those are your people.
Which is kind of strange. Okay, so this is the kind of thing. Like your people are. If you were my daughters, this is the complexity, right? So this, by the way, this is what's really. It's remember, 2 million Americans are adopted, okay? First off, you would be my daughters, adopted daughters, but daughters, so my people are your people, right? So if I say, hey, we're gonna go next summer to meet your people. We could go to see where my people were born, which in my case would be like Missouri, Indiana, Canada, so on. We'd go there, because those are your people also. But if the only time I say your people is your people, your genetic people, then it's complex. It's so difficult. Man, it's hard to also be a parent across, parent of any child. I'm going to say some advice. If you decide to adopt, whether you adopt with children who look like you or children who don't look like you, recognize that it is a journey of a lifetime. It's a very, very complicated, fascinating, loving journey, but very complicated. Yeah, you're in for life is complicated, but Hey, do we have a question? Hey, we have a question from the stream for you guys. So have you ever asked your parents why they adopted you? Oh, man. Okay, cool. Yeah, why'd they adopt you? Yeah, you have an interesting story.
I have a brother who's also adopted.
Okay.
But we're not related. So that's super
You're not
cool.
blood related.
Yeah.
But you said your mom was there at your birth.
Yeah, she worked in the hospital that I was born at. And so she knew my mother just from when they know people at the hospital.
Yeah.
They're regulars. So she knew her, and so when she came in, she was like, I want that baby. And she knew she was giving it up. And so like, yeah. Anyway,
Giving you up.
yeah, because
Yeah.
she was very young.
Yeah.
And so everyone kind of knew like that's not a good idea. And my mom was like, mine. But she loves telling the story of like that story of like when I was born and when she adopted me, and like she had like other foster kids before me and my brother, and they were like nightmares. And like she loves talking about it, and it makes her cry every time. Like on the way up here every single year, she has to tell me the story, and then she starts crying, and then I start
cool.
crying, and everyone starts crying. But
Dude, I'm going to cry.
because she's like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But
So you have one child, you have a brother who's also adopted,
yeah, he's 21.
but do your parents have biological kids?
No, my mom had a hysterectomy when she was like in her 30s,
Okay.
I think. So she was able to have kids up until that point.
Yeah.
But she studied in San Jose for like 5 years, so she also fell in love with like Hispanic culture and stuff.
In Costa Rica?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, no, in
In California or Costa Rica?
Like-
San Jose?
San Juan.
Oh, San Juan.
Yeah.
San Juan, okay.
And so
Yeah.
she like fell in love with like the culture and stuff.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and so she kind of like knew, and in North Carolina, there's a very large Hispanic population. So she was like fluent in Spanish.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and she studied there, so she was just very familiar with it.
Did you learn Spanish, by the way? All right.
They tried really hard. They put me in it since I was little. I just never stuck with it.
So how do you have an answer to the question? Did you ever ask your parents?
I've never asked them, but they've told me. My mom is a nurse for UPMC, but one of her doctors adopted from Guatemala, and my mom and my dad couldn't have a kid. And so they were like, we'll just adopt from Guatemala. That's how they got my older brother, Jonathan, who's also from Guatemala. And then my mom was like, I want a daughter. Like, I want a little girl. So they looked and they found me, and they were like, yep, her.
Awesome.
So I was like, oh, okay.
Awesome.
But yeah, so, and then my parents do have a biological kid. They found, like, that was just a surprise, Liam.
So how is that for you to have this other brother who's their child? Who's their biological child?
I got used to it. Like, I don't even see Liam, like, as, like,
Yeah.
we don't look alike anymore. I'm just like, oh, this is my little brother.
So did you, this would be the final thing I want to say, but did you see that even I just kind of said it here, right? Oh, so they had how was it to have, your parents had your brother was their child, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, but you're their child, right? And see, those are those tiny little slights
Yeah.
that you feel, and like, oh, and even though we're talking about this, and I'm like 100% on, I still said it. Like, oh, but they have a child. It's like, no, you have it. Like, oh, damn. And that's the stuff that, you work through, all the time.